Fontaine, and you're listening to the HomeBuyer's Hour on WCPT AM 820. And we are broadcasting live on Wednesday morning, even though you're hearing us on the radio Saturday morning. In the studio with us, we got a gentleman from Redfin. His name is Chris Engelmann. Chris, give us a quick hello and contact information and tell me what
you can
makes
reach
you
out
unique.
To me. My cell is 312-533-6523.
Say it again slower, please.
Yeah, good idea. 312-533-6523. And then I'm on Facebook, Instagram. You can find me on Redfin's website as well.
What are the handles for like Facebook or Insta? Is it Insta? Is that what the cool kids say?
Yeah, that is what they say.
I'm an old man. I'm sorry. Patrick's rolling his eyes at me. I love it.
They got this TikToker thing or something like that too. So, what are my handles? Chris Finds a Place.
I love it.
Yep, on Facebook. I think that's how it is on the URL, but you can also just Google Chris Engelmann Realtor, and I think that'll show up too. And then on Instagram, what would that be? I think just Chris Engel Real Estate.
I like that.
So,
keep it simple. Keep it good. Patrick, how about you? Say hello to somebody.
All right. Let me say hello to my beautiful wife, Anna, our beautiful cat, baby girl, Little Miss Naya T. Cat. The T stands for the. You can find, actually, she's got her own Instagram.
No,
not my wife,
not.
but the cat. Naya.t.cat.
I'm sorry. I am shaking my head at you.
Find me on Instagram, on IG, if you will. Naya, Naya, .t.cat.
Sounds good.
C-A-T.
Thank you. And Joey, if you don't mind, give us your contact information, and I want to hear what the heck is going on with our economy.
Hey, Joey Matthews, the VA Loan Nerd, NMLS 1330694. You can find me at thevaloannerd.com or across all social media as at the VA Loan Nerd. I have a phone number, too, if you want to call or text it, 630-235-2405. What is going on with the economy? Well, we have some improvement. As I predicted last week, there would be absolutely no deal. Just kidding. There is a deal on the table that is getting voted on regarding the debt ceiling. So we have seen sharp improvement in bond yields. We've seen sharp improvement in rate pricing. So my prediction is that it's going to get worse because that is working so far. Whenever I predict, the opposite happens. So that's what we're going to stick with right now.
Yeah, call it the Joey Index. It's right alongside the Kramer Index on my ticker.
Yeah. Yeah, it's.
I think that's a Seinfeld episode. I'm sure of it. The opposite Jerry or something like that, or George did that. He was opposite George.
Yeah. When George, I can't talk about that one. He, with yada yada yada, he started learning Portuguese.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. It sounds good. So, one of the reasons, Chris, that we brought you on here, obviously you're a lead agent over at Redfin, and you made a lot of stuff happen over there, which is outstanding. But more so, you wrote in there something that was really intriguing to me about buyers and finding the turnkey, the all, finished, ready to move into house, and how those are priced real high, where you've been kind of coaching, I think is the best word, clients to let's look at houses that are cheaper that might be outdated, but then talk them into some, cosmetic repairs to make everything a little bit better. Give us, I think I just gave the overall gist, but give me some details on that or some examples, please.
Yeah, I think different buyers have different tolerance for doing some work, maybe themselves, or even just organizing the contractors and dealing with the delays and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think, for the buyer who kind of has a sense of what it will take and can see the vision, there's really an opportunity to be had. The market's been really competitive, and so for the place that's turnkey, has the fresh new quartz counters and new cabinets and refinished floors, fresh coat of paint, that the horde comes after it. Everyone's bidding, it gets competitive, and they're landing high in the price. But then there's the place that doesn't have that. It's still a perfectly great place, built, say, within the last 20 years. And, the example that comes to mind most clearly, there was a average-sized townhome in Lincoln Park, and it was listed for $775, super competitive, I'm doing my analysis and asking myself, why is this going over the list price? I could see an argument for it being lower. A lot of townhomes are very vertical, and this wasn't bad, but it just wasn't great. And then, so same client, sees a place not terribly far away. It's just off the kind of the heart of Wicker, and it's a large duplex down, listed for $650, so $125 lower than that townhome.
You could do a lot with the $125,000.
You can, yep. Now, it was modern. A lot of the updates that people need to do that aren't fun are the systems work, the plumbing, the electrical, the HVAC, stuff you can't do on your own. But then when it comes to sanding and resurfacing floors, painting, having counters changed out, things like that, you can at least organize the project, even if you're not doing that yourself. And things like floors, enough YouTube videos, you can figure out how to do that. Again, not everyone's going to be up for doing that. But if you start putting dollars on how much each one of those things is going to take, I was thinking for that, where probably somewhere between, I might say 30 to 40,000. They can have the fresh kitchen, have resurfaced floors, have a fresh coat of paint, and it'll feel very much like that townhouse. And overall, similar amount of floor space, still a very desirable neighborhood. And I was just thinking, wow, I think there's an opportunity here. And I wasn't disappointed. The client, obviously, they know what they want, and they found a place different than both of those that's going to be a good fit for them. But I was just thinking that could be an opportunity for someone. And last I looked, it actually got pulled off market and didn't sell. And so I was intrigued by that.
Did you find out why?
No, I just looked it up this morning and saw that. So maybe I need to have it in mind for some other buyers.
Why not?
So,
in all reality, how many different, 1,000 different paint colors on all those swatches? Or 20,000? When you walk in there's a big, gigantic thing on what color paint you want to have. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what's in style or out style. I have no style. I know
for
that
sales,
much.
It's agreeable gray.
Oh my God, that's what I put in my house. Is it really?
Well, that's one of the probably easiest colors to help a place sell. So and it looks good with so many different. If you add your pop of color through your furniture, things that are easy to swap out. It's a lot easier to change a couch than it is to paint all your walls.
I got this huge grin on my face right now because that literally is the color that we got. And I know we're getting our porch ceiling painted today, and everybody wanted to go with some sort of blue, and I can't remember the name of it. So
we talked. I remember we talked a fair few weeks ago with Nicole Haydu about agreeable gray and some of the other paint colors that people like to put in a home that is going to sell. And I remember talking about my beautiful charcoal gray accent wall. Man, I love that wall.
That's cool. Sorry to cut you off. I had a client who bought a home in Uptown, and I went back about a year later, and the color they used was nocturnal gray. One of the cooler colors I've seen in a long time.
Really?
They did the whole dining room wall with that, and it's almost got a little bit of like teal in it, but it's really interesting. And so she was a graphic designer. She really had a cool aesthetic eye, and I'm trying to think how I can incorporate that in my place. It might become floor trim.
Without a doubt. And then cabinets, too, is something else you brought up. Like, what do people do with those to modernize them when they're from the 70s, 80s, 2000?
Yeah. Cabinets are expensive to rebuild. Actually, that same client, they were very DIY oriented. Their previous condo that they sold in Uptown, he did a lot of the work himself. And he told me about a website. The last I looked it up, it wasn't working quite the same as the first time I looked it up, but it was Cabinet Depot. And what he did is he used the existing framework of the old cabinets. He pulled off the doors, he ordered custom-sized doors, and then installed them himself. And I've been in enough places to see that not everyone can install cabinet doors straight. You see a lot of really crooked ones,
right?
And that can doing that wrong can change the flavor. But that being said, he saved a lot of money by using the pre-existing framework and just putting on new doors. And so shaker cabinets, I think that'll still be popular for a while.
Yeah, that's what I put in my house too. White shakers. Seems to work all the time.
Even installing or switching out some hardware, it's a little thing, but it can make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you're talking about, and I see this quite a bit when I see an inspection report on a fix and flip. Just as you're describing, all of the finishes are exactly what you want to see. They're updated. It's the HGTV. Everything's there, and by no means am I trying to suggest that there's anything wrong with that. Absolutely great to walk into a very stylish, up to that fashionable, updated home. But invariably, in one of these homes that has all the updated finishes, you'll open the utility closet, you poke your head in, and you'll see a furnace from the the mid 80s, and you're like, ooh, that is going to be a problem at some point, and not too far in the future. Whereas I think for my own self, I would prefer to have that home with 15-year-old finishes that looks a little tired. But if I poke my head into the utility closet, I've got a water heater that I'm confident I won't have to replace for the next 10 years. Same with the furnace, AC. Those are the things that are really going to cause you to stick your hand in your pocket. You're going to buy new, and you'll probably have a more energy efficient a fixture, not fixture, whatever the unit is. It's going to save you a little bit of money on your bills, but you're not going to be all the time poking your head, oh man, look at my new furnace. No, like once it's in. It's
not as fun.
It's not. So now you're talking about, okay, fine, we've got this house, this so-called good bones, we don't see any glaring problems with it. All we need is some paint and some creativity. Now you get to choose the color. Now you get to choose what happens with those cabinets, the hardware. You might not like the choice they made in terms of the flooring. You might decide to go with something a little bit more upscale. I mean, let's face it, when someone's fixing and flipping, every dollar counts. So they're probably, if they have to choose between something that's a little, and this is, I'm speaking very generally, right? If you're fixing and flipping something that's going to be, $2-3 million, yeah, you're going to have high-end finishes. But if rather you're fixing and flipping something that is going to be more in like the $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 range, you're probably going to make a somewhat more downscaled choice than someone who's going to actually live in it. There's a lot of upside to what you're describing in terms of finding something that is a little bit more of a hidden gem.
I think in this market, it's so competitive. It's really, truly hard to find a deal. But that is, I think, probably the best opportunity is to find the place that it isn't freshly redone, isn't drawing as much attention online, but yet isn't going to take an extra $30,000 or $40,000 worth of system stuff, before you get to do the fun things.
And it sounds like you've got some experience doing some of this stuff, with the fixing up your place.
I've done a little here and there. I sanded and restained floors on the top level, and that was
by yourself.
Yeah,
you just rented the stuff.
I hauled it's funny. I went to Home Depot and got some bad advice on using a disc sander instead of a drum sander.
Nice.
I had the drum sander, and then someone talked me out of it and said, "Oh, you're going to ruin your floors with that if you haven't done this before. Get the disc sander." And after 2 days of not getting beneath the poly, I finally realized that wasn't the right tool. So
oh my God!
Went back out the drum sander, and that cut much faster. But yeah, it leaves undulations. I'm not a professional. And the other thing I learned during that process, and it was 2 a.m. at night when I learned this because the staining was taking much longer than I thought.
Oh, Lordy.
As you're using the stain, it's meant to evaporate quickly, and so as you get to the bottom of the bucket, it's more concentrated because it's evaporating. And I look over in one spot I just did, and it's much darker than the rest of it. And so the next morning, I'm spending 3 hours with mineral spirits trying to spread it out a little bit, and it worked okay. But you definitely learn things by doing them, and you just got to have a tolerance for it not being perfect.
Yeah, life isn't perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. Joey's a recent home buyer, and I wanted to get his take on this and find out what he ended up doing. So, Joey, when you got your home, was it exactly the way you wanted? It was all turnkey, or did you guys end up doing work in there?
My last house, we did a bunch of work, but this house, we haven't really touched it yet. We completely replaced all the floors with French white oak. We took down the stairway.
That's a big deal. What do you mean we didn't do anything?
No, well, that's not my last house. On the new one, we haven't done anything.
Oh.
My last house, we did a bunch of work. But because of the work that we did, we also got a lot more money out of it when we did sell it. So
here's another good question I want to get on that one. Did you do all the work right before you were going to sell, or did you do it right after you moved in?
So we did a majority of it right after we moved in. And then I replaced all of the not sexy stuff, the furnace, the AC, all those units. I put in high efficiency stuff for when we were going to be selling, because I knew that we had it for 10 years. And I was just like, you know what? It's not at the end of its life, but it's close enough. And I want to make sure that, no problems arise out of this. So
Now you say not sexy stuff, but to the people sitting in this room, man,
that's blasphemy.
Talk furnace to me,
nice.
baby.
Exactly.
Yep.
You give me a 93% or condensing furnace coming in here with 60,000 BTUs input, I'm going to be in heaven. I don't know what you're talking about, not sexy.
Devin, we need you to turn the AC up, man. It's getting hot in here.
Are we talking ACs now, too?
Ooh, boy.
Those are sexy, too. Mm-hmm. And then you keep going on to water heaters and everything, man. I could talk dirty,
Oh, my God. So there's people sitting listening to this on Saturday morning going, this is too much for me.
Yeah, let's turn this off. All right, no more of that. I'll file the complaints right now. No, but in all reality, it's they actually made TV shows on HGTV. What is it, like Property Brothers would do that, right? They would take you into a house that was out of your price range, and it was all your punch list and everything that's on that checklist that you want to get. But again, you're going to be paying for it. It's a seller's market right now.
Those Property Brothers, you want to talk sexy, tell you what.
Oh, gosh. We're going into trigger mode on these things. There's no doubt on that. But it's if you can go ahead and get someone to do the work, but that's another thing too, is finding the contractors and getting that. I mean, how do you end up going with? Fun fact: the AC in the studios is currently broken, so now we don't even have. No wonder it's nice and warm in here. I thought it was because we were talking sexy furnaces and that. But what do you do about Chris with contractors? I mean. And let me, why I'm asking this, I am a big advocate about it holding your reputation. And when you give a referral to somebody else, you're really putting your reputation on stake.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Best is to have some sort of rapport and relationship. I tell people, like, you can Google just as well as I can, so I don't want to just pass you someone I found off Google.
Yeah, do not do that, by the way.
I had a client last week, they did their inspection, and the roof is an unknown. There was a deck that looked worn, and, I called the roofer that I used last year, and they did a good job. And after the project was done, there were some things that I was like, wait a second, I think you might have missed some things. And they came back and they corrected it, and, they're very professional. They showed up when they said they would, and they had a crew. They came in, they did it fast. I heard someone say once, when you see the people that make it look easy, those are the people who really know what they're doing a lot of the time.
Good point.
And that's why, Chris, I asked you earlier about, some of the stuff that you've done yourself, because there's nothing that teaches you about something more than doing and making those mistakes. And not that you're going to get into any sort of floor restaining business yourself, but having done that yourself, you can legitimately tell somebody, look, this is what goes into it. This is what I experienced, and you now have a much better idea. You can picture it in your head about what it really is, and rather than just saying, oh yeah, just get those floors refinished. Those are two different things. It may not sound like a big difference, but to me, it's a huge difference.
Yeah. And I think you really just have to bite off and realize what you can take on and what you can't. And, as you're referring people to clients. Yeah. I thought doing floors was fun. I'm planning to actually rebuild the floors. Joey mentioned white oak. That's what's trending right now. I think it looks awesome. So I'm going to do my living, dining room, and hallway. Partially because the old floors are really squeaky, partially because it'll just look a lot better than the orange honey oak that was in the building when I bought it.
I think Joey said French white oak. Let's make sure, he's a little bit more
rich for my blood.
Upscale than just white oak.
Mine's coming from Atlanta, I think they said, or Georgia. But
mine's coming from Stone Park, so somebody's house that got turned out of there. So I apologize. And believe it or not, we had family members there, so I'm not going to be too mean for going that route. But how do you get the clients to buy into stuff like that? I guess that's the real thing. I always look at our job as being the advocates or the educators or the advisors for our clients. But if somebody wants turnkey yet they don't want to pay, doesn't that kind of be like a catch-22 if you don't want to pay the big bucks for that stuff?
Yeah, it's hard, and not all clients are going to buy into it, and that's their choice. I mentioned I was kind of making the same argument to those clients who saw the 650 duplex down that had great bones. Yeah, and we're not going to do it on our own, and we just don't want to deal with the delay. We'd just rather have something to move into, and that's their choice. Like you said, our job is to educate and just kind of draw out some of those trade-offs. You can't really, if you do floors, you got to do them right away. If you want to change out your kitchen cabinets and counters easier to do before you move in, because then you're shuffling all your spices out and finding temporary storage for them and stuff like that. But just kind of having a plan, like if they are more oriented to doing, managing the project and doing it over time, thinking through like what are those first things you do, and then what comes later, and what's more livable that you can deal with over time. And but yeah, I mean, you almost don't want to like push it too hard, because for some people, if they have less awareness of it, they are gonna create a lot of headaches. And I don't want them being up at 2 a.m. with their floor stain problem like I was.
And there's a line between being an advisor and being a manipulator. We don't want to coerce somebody into doing what you want them to do. We just want to give them the knowledge and see if that's an avenue they want to go down. Yeah. And one other thing that popped in my mind, you mentioned earlier about that roofer where you said, hey, this was missing and this was missing, and they came back and fixed all that stuff. That's the way to judge another person, right? It's not if they make mistakes. Everybody's going to, but it's how they handle the mistakes. That to me
it was
is
not convenient for them to bring
person.
their crew back, and they weren't close by.
But it's the right thing to do at the right time. You do it the right way, and you do it for the right reason.
Charlie, I don't judge anyone. I'm in no position to judge, so I don't know where you're coming from with that.
I speak sarcasm, all right? So I understand exactly what it is that you're saying where it comes to
I like to talk smack. That's one of my favorite things.
Joey, here's a kind of a weird question, and I'm sure you got a good answer. But if somebody, let's say they want to buy a house or a property that's $750,000, $750,000, but yet they decided that they're going to go after something at $600,000. Are they able to build in anything into their loan that will allow them to do some sort of repairs like this?
If you're doing a rehab loan, for sure.
Is that an easy thing to do or not?
It depends on who you're working with, right?
I guess,
exactly. Yeah, no, like everybody, I have a team of a bunch of bankers, right? None of them have gotten into the construction rehab space, but I have, because that's just the market that we're in, is everyone wants to, finance repairs. They want to find, I have people that are just like, I just want to find a foreclosure. I'm like, well, good luck, but here's how we handle this, right?
Wait a minute, hold on. You just said find a foreclosure, good luck. Are you saying there's not a lot of foreclosures out there?
I'm sure that there is foreclosures out there.
Okay.
This isn't 2008. People think that we're going to run into this 2008 housing crisis where everyone forecloses. No. That's what they're waiting for. That's what these people are talking about. Exactly. So, yeah, there's not a lot of foreclosures, just from what I see.
No, and let me just add in here. So, in terms of foreclosures, there will always be foreclosures, right? Somebody, has some sort of a hardship that was unforeseen, some sort of medical situation that the disability insurance either isn't there, doesn't cover it. It's just in any economy, any market, it's bound to happen, unfortunately. Now, a couple things about foreclosures. You don't generally get much of an opportunity to inspect such a house. So there's definitely a higher amount of risk. Now,
when you say that, do you mean inspect the house before you put the offer in on it, or after you put the offer in on it?
Before you put the offer in. So you're kind of going in cold. Now, here's the other thing about foreclosures, and I talk about this. This is kind of a thread that I continue to push, which is that people seem to overestimate how good they're going to be at real estate investing. That's just what my anecdotal observations are. And so they think to themselves, ooh, foreclosure, I can get the same house, but I can get it for a lower price because I'm buying it from a bank. Well, you're not the first person to have thought of that. And there are people that legitimately do this for a living. This is what their job is. And they go out there and they know the little tips and tricks about how to get a better idea of which foreclosures are worth bidding on and which aren't. And if you find one that there are not any of the professional investors out there trying to get their hands on it, you should wonder why.
They probably thought of something you didn't.
Well, so it's the same thing when I hear people talk about, well, what if I became someone who buys unpaid tax bills, and I go, man, that road is so fraught with bumps and pitfalls and things that you're probably not, unless you've got like a really awesome mentor that is giving you tons of great advice, which that's an unusual scenario.
No, but they have groups that you could buy into to learn those processes, and people with experience, but that's not cheap.
Well, it's so right. So now right. So I'm kind of taking this on a different path because Joey was talking about, I'm looking for a foreclosure because you would ask him about people that want to build into a loan, rehab costs. And so let me just take it off of the complete tangent that I was going on. My point was that foreclosures are a lot harder than people realize. Buying a foreclosure, or going and buying bank-owned property, and those deals fall apart all the time just because. I'll leave it at that. Joey, I'm familiar with when you talk about building into the loan rehab costs, I'm familiar with FHA 203K. Is there a conventional product similar, or are we mainly looking at that kind of loan product if we're going to build in rehab costs to the loan?
Yeah, so there's Fannie Mae Homestyle. There's Freddie Mac has I think it's just called Freddie Mac Renovation. VA has a rehab loan. They all have limits on how much you can spend on the rehab. I know VA is $35,000 and it can only be for non-luxury items. FHA similar. And then Fannie and Freddie, they also have limits on how much you can build into the rehab cost. You would need to work with a GC that is either approved by the VA, FHA. There's a lot more that goes into it.
There's a lot.
We're going to be, we're working off of a appraisal that is based on the idea of the work that is being done. So your GC is going to want to be with the appraiser going through the property. You don't need specs and plans on a rehab, which is nice because it's not necessarily a construction loan, but you definitely want your appraiser there. Your GC there with the appraiser to tell them about all the changes that are going to be made so they can properly appraise the property, because that is what's going to matter for the loan. If all the work that you're doing is not going to raise the value enough to get it done, then you're going to be in a tough spot.
When you say non-luxury items, does that mean you can do the electrical, the plumbing upgrades, but they're not going to do the quartz counters?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
But what if you need countertops? Does it matter what
if you
type
need
you put in there?
No. You're not going to get Italian marble flown in from Florence or wherever they make that stuff.
Get some butcher block. Come on, don't be fancy.
But you'll get something serviceable. They'll be okay with serviceable as long as it's something that is a cost that makes sense for the area, for the item, all that good stuff. There's some goofy calculator out there for it. You're not going to get. Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Are there two appraisals then? Is there one at the beginning and then one based on the future value, as you alluded to, or is that just the future value one at the beginning?
It's all at the beginning.
Okay.
All at the beginning. And then once the work is done, the appraiser goes back out there and they certify that the work has been complete as it was proposed. And then they say whether or not the property is still worth the original appraised value. That
is a lot different than the 203Ks.
Well, I think Joey, if I'm not mistaken, what you're describing, it's fairly similar to what the 203K looks like, but it's a lot. You're talking about when you say GC, I'm assuming that's the same as the HUD consultant.
General contractor. Sorry. Yeah.
So the HUD consultant, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the contractor you'll go with after closing, but man, I have seen some things that just Joey, don't you have some period of time after closing within which you need to have that work done?
I can't tell you exactly what the number is.
6 months.
I had to be honest.
I know the 203Ks, that was a year.
Okay.
They wanted it 6 months, but you had up to a year.
Yeah.
And the general rehab and construction rule is up to a year.
Is it?
Yeah.
And I've seen people, they have it all lined up, they get the loan, and then all of a sudden they've got a flaky GC. They run into problems. It is a tough road to go down to finance those things.
I'm going to continue on this. About 5 clients look into it. No one's actually pursued it.
Wow. So. If you don't mind, Chris, give us some contact information. I want to go around the horn, and then we'll get back on this, renovation stuff, please.
My contact information?
Please.
Yeah, I'm at 312-533-6523. And then you can find me. Redfin has a profile they maintain for me. I think there's a way to contact me through that. Facebook, Instagram. Chris Finds a Place on Facebook.
I really like that. I'm going to reach out and go ahead and find that. Chris Finds a Place. I can remember that because my favorite son, my only son, is listening right now, and he actually flew in from Memphis to help us put electrical out to the garage outside in the backyard. So that I was happy with. Patrick, give us your contact info, please.
All right. So if you're not necessarily looking to get in touch with my cat, you can reach me on social media. On IG, it's Loftus_law, and the way you spell Loftus is LOF like Frank, T like Tom, US like Sam, for those of you who are listening, not watching. And then you can also find me on TikTok, at Loftus Law. And I believe I'm up to 68 followers on TikTok, so the next one, you know what I'm saying?
You're flying up the stream. And then you also have that cheap flights things. I like to plug that every now and then.
Yeah.
What number is that up to on TikTok?
58,000.
That's a lot of stuff. So let me get this straight that I understand this. People are more interested in getting cheap flights than they are on getting good real estate attorney stuff going on there, right?
Can you imagine? There's a broader market for people wanting to get on a plane and go somewhere cool and not spend a lot of money than there is for people who want to find out what paragraph 3 of the multi-board 7.0 contract that we use in
which
the Chicago
you're still
areas.
Working on all that, I take it, right?
I am. I think I'm about 8 videos in, and I'm still on page 1.
I love it.
The next one's going to be earnest money. So stay tuned for...
Didn't we get through line 2 last week?
I think so.
We did not actually finish line 2. We spent about 10 minutes on it.
I think I tried to write a series of articles on just the process my first year in real estate.
Yeah.
I did get a lot of hits on that.
It's a lot of work, but the more we know about the whole process, the better we could serve our clients and such. I don't know.
Well, if for nothing else, it gives me practice describing these things in a succinct way, because outside of the context of I need to make this explanation 90 seconds long or less, I could just go on forever. I mean, I barely have enough time in 53 minutes, 30 seconds to say everything I have to say.
Right?
So,
Joey, how do people get hold of you if they have any questions about loans, mortgages, rehabs?
Yeah, you could reach out to me at 630-235-2405. Call or text anytime. Or you can find me at thevaloannerd.com or across all social media as at the VA Loan Nerd.
How about that, Chris, for a title, right?
Yeah, that's memorable.
It is very memorable. My name is Charlie Belfontaine. I own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our website is The Home Inspectors. That's plural, ORS, and it's a .com. We also train home inspectors, and that website is Home Inspection University of Illinois, HIUIL.com, and our phone number is 312-544-9180. I was panicking there a little bit because I wasn't sure I remembered it right. 312-544-9180. And Joey, we were talking about the difficulties or not so difficulties in getting the rehab loan. And that $35,000 mark, that kind of hit me. It's like, that's not a lot of money.
No, I agree completely.
It is especially if you have to have a GC. You can't be your own GC.
We won't approve that.
Okay.
I tell my clients, like, you can't just pull on your uncle to do your concrete work or something like that. Like, you got to pay full price for the professionals.
But I've seen a lot of that happen. I know when I was doing 203Ks as a HUD consultant, Patrick brought that up. And I probably did it for like 20 years, and then it just got annoying, quite frankly. A lot of the contractors, it seems like I want to get the low bid so I get the job, and then I'm going to add on the contingencies afterwards, right? And Patrick's rolling his eyes on that one.
Well, right. So, and
that's a big pet peeve of mine.
Sure, of course. I mean, and that's really the trouble you run into. It's the same thing as the Spirit Airlines problem. You get the price to get on the plane is, pretty low, but then as soon as you want to wear a pair of shoes that that's oversized 10.
You want a safety belt?
You're paying a safety belt. you get a safety belt on Spirit?
You got to pay an extra $100.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So
I like Spirit Airlines. I think they're the greatest airline in the world. I'm sorry, we're not going to talk bad about them on the radio.
I will.
Are they one of our
I'll look
sponsors?
for your cheap flight video.
What's that?
I said I'll look for your cheap flight video to get two more followers.
All right, perfect, beautiful. Yeah, no, I have no problem saying bad things about Spirit. Yeah, they can, they can do one as the. Are they a sponsor? Are we getting kicked off?
I don't know if they are, but they might get mad.
You know what?
We'll see.
They don't care about me. They don't care. And you know what, Spirit? If you got something to say, come at me, bro.
It's not you. It's that number right behind you that I'm more worried about.
All right, fine. I mean,
But go back on to the construction stuff on the 203K and good, fast, and cheap.
Right. So, someone who's going to get a 203K loan, it's likely to be their first time doing this. More often than not, they're not going to have a Rolodex. No one has a Rolodex, but they're not going to have a contact list full of contractors, reliable, good. You want to talk about the 80-20 rule. I mean, with contractors, it's about 98-2. So you've got to find that 2% that can get the job done at a reasonable price and aren't going to, mess about with you.
But once they're good, then their prices go up.
That's the thing. There's a short window when they're they're the diamond in the rough, and then they get discovered.
Fair point. But yeah, it's like you're shooting in the dark a little bit in terms of hiring each of these contractors, and really it only takes one bad apple to spoil the bunch. And as it were, that phrase is actually truer than people think, because once you get an apple in a whole bunch that is going bad, it releases a certain pheromone that makes all the other apples go bad. So, how's that for just a complete non sequitur?
No, but we keep.
So
I know we keep
by Apple Knowledge.
There it is. No, we keep a list of people that I personally have worked with, and I maintain this list. And we actually put it up on our website. It's it's thehomeinspectors.com and /network. All right.
Yeah, bookmark that. That's huge.
And I edit it, I change it, I put people on, I take them off. All right. If you don't treat my clients, because again, it goes back to reputation. If you want me to refer business to you, I'm more than happy to. I'm not going to tell you what to charge. That's the one thing I will not do. You could do whatever you want, but the service and the quality, those are the two things that I expect to be very high. And stick to whatever you're going to charge. Get that out front, know your job, know it well, and you should be able to set the expectations, meet the expectations, exceed the expectations. You will get a lot of referrals from me.
Yeah, I think, and look, let's not overlook the fact that in some instances a job does increase in scope. You discover something, you go, wow, there's a foundation crack. There's a $12,000 problem that we didn't anticipate. Yeah. Fair enough. And to the extent that you can, you can't legislate for every single contingency, because otherwise you'll just it just becomes confusing. But generally speaking, I think if you are a professional in that realm, you'll know of the handful of common things that can increase the cost, and let someone know up front, hey, this is, if everything goes more or less as planned, this is what it'll cost. And by the way, there are some things that are, I won't say common, but they do tend to happen with some more frequency than the other thing, than some of the other things that I've run into in my experience. And if these things happen, it could increase the price. At the very least, you're letting that person know that there are possibilities, contingencies,
options,
and things that come up, rather than just hoping for the best that you'll never have to have that uncomfortable conversation later. And maybe you might lose a couple of people over that who are just strictly looking at price and want you to guarantee without a doubt that this is the price you'll charge. I mean, no one wants to do work and lose money for the work they did. So
you want to be fair to them too.
Yeah, should
everybody's entitled to make money. There's
different types of jobs.
Right.
Painting cabinets is different from installing an HVAC unit, right? And so it's, I've had a situation a couple months back where an agent was raving about the contractor she used to paint cabinets, and it's like, only $1,100 did a fantastic job. give me his number. You know, so I passed him on to a client. He came in, painted trim. It was great. I actually didn't talk to the guy. I, put him in touch. Knew his first name only. And it's like, you wouldn't do that with a furnace, right? Because that's where things are done wrong. Things could blow up. If cabinets are painted wrong, they can be repainted. And
Patrick, tell him he's triggering me right now talking about furnaces being installed right. I mean, I'm going to argue that one like there's no tomorrow. Most of these contractors, they're just take that furnace right out of the box. They'll hook the ductwork up to it, a gas line, the electric to it.
Doesn't have the right pitch on the flue.
It doesn't matter.
Charlie, I've got a water heater. I'm just dying to sell you for the low price of $5,500.
You're trying to trigger me again.
Because your water, let me tell you, your water heater, I can't get it to work, and it must be broken.
Yeah, we'll reset that GFI switch, and it's good, and we'll last. That 4-year-old water heater, that's a good trigger. No, but when we come in there and we do a little bit more than what most home inspectors do. We'll throw a combustion analyzer on the furnace, and we can see how well tuned these things are. And when you start running into these furnaces that are pumping out over 200-300 parts per million of carbon monoxide out the vent, you're like, did anybody even try to adjust this gas valve at all? And you're putting this into somebody else's house. If there is a leak or in the exhaust flues, or if there is a hole in the heat exchanger, you got high levels that are coming in the house. You could tune these things down to less than 10 parts per million going up the exhaust, and that's what I personally like to see.
Yeah,
I'm triggered. I'm sorry. I'm getting off my little high horse here, and actually after I sit on a horse, those legs go out, so it's a whole nother story.
The more information that you can ascertain and learn before you close on and own the property, the better, really. Yeah. And having people with experience, Charlie, you've got tons of experience with knowing exactly what you're looking for in terms of a furnace. I think, and just from my own experience looking at hundreds of inspection reports, more often than not, they just go, look, I can't see inside the furnace, and so you should probably have it cleaned and serviced. And it's just
recommend to have it serviced and inspected.
Almost.
Now
invariably,
you guys are just all trying to trigger me. Joey, come to my defense over here, will you please? Tell these guys to be nice.
Joey, you should just tell Charlie that in every circumstance they should be getting a licensed and HVAC technician out to further evaluate the system, right?
And then they should get a roofer out there. They should get a framing guy, window guy. They should get all the trades out there. What the heck do you even need home inspectors for? I don't know. To me, it's like we should be knowing more instead of knowing less. And it's just a pet peeve of mine to keep pushing it off on other people. Because, well, you two, Chris and Patrick, you tell me. I know the answer, but how many business days does somebody have to determine the condition of the house and what they want to move forward with or not?
Yeah, they get 5 days to make those requests unless there's an extension. And that's, if you do your general inspection day 3 or day 4, and then you realize you need a roof inspection or you need an HVAC specialist to look at it, I mean, you're into extension territory, and if there's backup offers, the seller might not be so willing. So,
we get a lot of that push on there, and that's the whole idea of, I don't want to be that go call somebody else guy. I don't want any of our inspectors to be that call someone else guy. I want these guys smart enough that they could be the ones to call, and if somebody, we find the bad contractors out there, the ones that are trying to sell you things you don't need. So we could recognize that BS flag that comes out there, and that's the important stuff. And let me just throw this out there to everybody listening. I don't charge to talk on the phone, all right? If there's anything that you have, that you're buying a product, you get a new furnace, you think somebody's giving you some hokey info, please reach out, 312-544-9180. Hit the old number 2 when it says talk to an actual live human being. It will come to me, and I will guide you, all right, that comes with this thing. So,
and, for what it's worth, because I have background in construction, it gives me, I think, a more acute eye for some of these things. And certainly there's some limitations at just looking at it through an inspection report, right? But through my experience handling real estate transactions, going on near 20 years, and before then, having construction experience, I can picture a lot of this stuff, I think, better than someone who is simply never stepped foot on a construction site, or has the most interaction they've had with home maintenance is having their handyman on speed dial. Speed dial, what's that?
Certainly, as you walk through new construction, you see how a conduit gets mapped through studs and things like that, and you realize, oh wow, that would be hard to change out that wiring. Or it's I think I've had somewhere between, probably in the ballpark of 250 transactions the past 2 years, and I've been in the vast majority of those inspections myself, and you really do learn a ton. A lot of the same problems come up inspection to inspection, but then there are times when there's some really unique things that pop up. It really does. You going back to what you were saying about foreclosures, it's hard to get a sense before the inspection, but sometimes if you know where to look, you can really tell a lot just from that initial look without having to open things up.
Yeah, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the number of inspections that a licensed professional inspector has to walk in order to get that license is roughly 5. And so if
you're mean,
if Chris has walked 250 plus inspections, what else do I need to say? That he now has a much more trained eye. Once you have that experience, you'll walk into that house and you go, there's legitimately 5 things I have to see immediately. I need to poke my head in the utility closet, need to go down in the basement, look what that looks like, if there is one.
I think that's some of the smartest things that real estate agents do. Because these are things that really make buyers balk. And Chris argued this with me if I'm wrong, all right, or you disagree. If there's an old furnace, old air conditioner, old water heater, that makes people nervous because those are kind of bigger ticket items, or an old roof, right?
Mm-hmm. But those are also the things you can't really negotiate on a turn or review just because it's old.
Right.
If there's actually a defect, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But if your furnace is 25 years old and it's working, well, you're just going to have to pay for that. And that's why we ask that ahead of time before going into contract, just to get a sense of what expenses are in that 5-year pipeline.
And this is where I was going, and this is where I love to encourage every single real estate broker to do that when you're doing the showings. It doesn't take much to go over to the furnace, look inside, the burner. There's usually not even a screw or a bolt. Most of them just lift up. Even if you just take a picture of it, you're able to determine how old that furnace is, the water heater, air conditioners. You can take a rough idea. And this is all done before the offer is put in on the house. Let our clients know ahead of time because of what you just said. A lot of people don't realize that, is it in both CAR and 7.0 that you can't, negotiate something based on age?
Yeah, there's a line certainly that essentially says it's not a grounds for price reduction or a credit just because it's old.
Right. So knowing that ahead of time so that you're not getting that surprise and you feel like, I think it's golden. Do you see value in that? I'm putting you on the spot here unfairly.
Look, there's a lot I can do during inspection, but one of the things I can't really do is negotiate to get you a new water heater if the thing works. Negotiate that before the seller accepts and understand what you're getting yourself into, because if you're trying to if it's news to you that the furnace is 20 years old 3 days after the seller has accepted, that's bad news. But it's bad news that you can't now. You have to prepare for that now that you've already agreed on a price, and that's you don't have any. There's no way to improve your position really.
And I had a deal get canceled yesterday. We went under contract a week and a half ago. Well, there were larger building issues, and the seller who was unwilling to provide their help, but there was also a furnace that was said to be 2019 and found to be 15 years old. And that was just something we couldn't protect against. The seller just had bad information themselves, unfortunately.
That's a shame.
That's a huge difference. So
I don't know how I forgot that my furnace didn't get replaced 4 years ago.
Right. I think they were swapped out a component or something, but I was described incorrectly.
Either that or somebody, maybe sold them an old furnace. Who knows? They might have. Patrick, I love the way your eyes are glowing out there. There's not there's bad people out there in this world.
Oof.
You know, so the more knowledge you have, that's where the power is. Knowledge is power. I say it over and over again.
And sometimes the seller, it's the psychological aspect. Well, once they're under contract, we'll figure out a solution. This buyer said, no, we're not. We're moving on.
Buyers say the same thing. I hear that a lot, that, you know, all right, we'll bid $50,000 over, and then we'll get them on the inspection. Because they actually are that forward with me. They're like, you know, can you find a whole bunch of stuff wrong with this so we can negotiate the price? I'm like, we don't change how we do it for any reason. Right. What you do with that info is up to you. But I'll tell you what, you should talk to your attorney about that and read that contract you signed.
You're a licensed professional. So if you go in there and you find a foundation issue that doesn't exist, you're not going to be in business for very much longer, because it's going to be discovered that you're fudging the inspection reports. Not only is it unethical, but you're not going to be licensed for very much longer if you keep that up. So
I would hope that the idea of PR would come after me then, if that was the case.
So then the question is for the buyer. So do you legitimately want a bunch of stuff wrong with this property that you have to spend a bunch of money on? That doesn't make sense. I mean, that's really backward thinking. So
it's one thing to have a very thorough inspection just so you know what to keep an eye on. It's another thing. I had a client a few years ago at the beginning of the inspection, pull the inspector aside and say, I want you to write down every single thing you find. I'm going to ask for everything. And predictably, that deal did not work out.
And you're wasting everybody's time, your money, and everything else as a buyer. Listen, we're running short on time. Let's go around the horn one last time. Chris, how do people get hold of you? And then here's the hard question. What makes you unique? Why should somebody want to reach out to you and use you as their buyer's agent?
Well, the first question is easier. You can get me at 312-533-6523. You can also find me through Redfin's profile they maintain for me. Why am I special? Well, I think I have a mix of backgrounds that actually works out pretty well for what I do. I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering, and granted, like, you don't need the full analysis of how beams bend in every situation, but sometimes it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Just kind of a tinkerer mentality. And then I actually did my master's degree. I did a Master of Divinity, training to be a pastor. And I think that gives me a little more patience, maybe understanding in some circumstances. And I've, like I said, I've been a part of 250 sale and purchase transactions the past few years, all sorts of different
huge
price points and types of properties. So, yeah,
and
I like to think I know what I'm doing.
Even the training, I know a lot of that. As far as going after pastor stuff, there's a lot of society issues that come in there. And because we are a melting pot here in the States, we do have different expectations on how life moves on. Some of them I enjoy, some of them I don't enjoy. But that, I think, helps out a lot as well. Patrick, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think having, the compassion element of that is going to help you everywhere, including in real estate. If you want to reach me, you can email me. I'm not big on getting random phone calls from random numbers, because usually it's someone trying to sell me. It's not really like car warranties anymore. Those are kind of have fallen off, but you get the vibe. Send me an email instead, patrick@loftus.law.
I think it's all the Google search engine stuff that comes down there. Joey, how do they get hold of you?
Well, you can call or text me at 630-235-2405. Find me at thevaloannerd.com or across all social media as at the VA Loan Nerd.
And then I want to just throw a couple plugs for Patrick and Joey over here. Patrick, all due respect, you probably know more about real estate law, and your demeanor on how you try to help people is just amazing. For that, I say thank you. And Joey, the one thing that I wish you would tell people every single week is that you do what's, off the record is pre-guarantees. You make sure that loan, if it's going through, that it doesn't hiccup and there's no just bad paperwork. If somebody gets that pre-approval, it's pre-guaranteed, all right? And in closing words, my name is Charlie Belfontaine. I own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. I want to give special thanks to Devin. He's our producer and makes everyone sound so good. And other than that, thanks for listening. My name is Charlie again, and we are out.